When I first took the job as a live-in nanny for the Sullivans, I was 20 and thought I had won the lottery. Their world was something out of a magazine, a meticulously curated life of private schools, personal chefs, and sprawling estates. Their home, a magnificent brownstone on the Upper East Side, was a museum of priceless art and designer furniture. Mr. Sullivan, a quiet, kind man named Jonathan, was a venture capitalist whose name was synonymous with success. Mrs. Sullivan, Victoria, was a socialite, an immaculately dressed woman with an air of cold, casual superiority. My job was to care for their two children, a 6-year-old girl named Charlotte and an 8-year-old boy named Henry. They were my whole world. They were bright, funny, and surprisingly grounded, a testament to their father's quiet influence rather than their mother's. They were the reason I loved my job. For months, I was an invisible part of their lives, a ghost in the golden cage, observing the opulence and the subtle cruelties that money could buy. I was in, but I was never a part of it. I was just the nanny. Victoria's world was a revolving door of exclusive events, charity galas, and art openings. She was always the center of attention, a perfectly polished figure of effortless grace. But beneath the surface, she was brittle. She was a woman who needed to be in control, to be the most powerful person in any room. She was kind to the help, but it was a condescending kindness, a performance of graciousness. I saw her dismiss a chef with a wave of her hand and reduce a designer to tears with a single, cutting remark. She was the queen of her world, and she ruled with a cold, iron fist. The children, however, were my solace. Charlotte, with her wild, curly hair, would sneak into my room to tell me secrets. Henry, a quiet, thoughtful boy, would show me his drawings. They trusted me, and in a house full of expensive things and distant people, their trust was the most valuable thing I had. Jonathan, the quiet husband, was almost always working, but he was always kind, a man who saw me not as the help, but as a person. His quiet approval made me feel like I was doing a good job. Victoria's approval, on the other hand, felt like a constant, unachievable goal. I knew she was waiting for me to fail. The event that changed everything was a high-profile charity gala for a children's hospital. Victoria insisted that I attend. "It's important that you're here to look after Charlotte and Henry," she'd told me, her voice clipped, "and it's a good chance for you to see what the real world looks like." The tone was meant to be condescending, a reminder of my place, but I took it as a chance to see a new world. I wore a simple black dress, one I had bought on sale, and tried my best to blend in. I was a fish out of water, surrounded by million-dollar gowns and the easy laughter of people who had never had to worry about a bill in their life. The Sullivans were at the center of it all, a beacon of wealth and power. Victoria, in a stunning emerald gown, was radiant, a queen holding court. She had already had a few glasses of champagne and her smile was a little too wide, a little too strained. I was standing by the children's table, making sure they weren't eating too much sugar, when I felt her presence behind me. A cold, quiet, predatory presence. "Mark," she said, her voice a low purr. Mark was her family's last name, and she had a habit of calling me that, a way to remind me that I was an extension of her family, a possession. I turned, and she looked me up and down, a cruel, mocking amusement in her eyes. "That's a lovely little dress," she said, loud enough for a small group of her friends to hear. "I do hope you didn't spend too much on it. The children need new clothes more than you need to impress anyone." The words were a calculated, public humiliation. Her friends, a collection of equally well-dressed socialites, let out a few polite, stifled laughs. The implication was clear: I was a frivolous, selfish girl who was wasting the money she was paid. I felt my face flush with a hot, desperate shame. The hum of discipline I had learned to master threatened to break. My heart was pounding, and I could feel the tears welling up. But I couldn't let her win. Not here. Not in front of the kids. I looked her in the eye, my voice as calm and quiet as I could make it. "The dress was a gift, Victoria," I said, my voice steady. "A gift from my grandmother." It was a lie, but it was a good one. A lie that appealed to their own, private, deeply held traditions. She scoffed, a look of disbelief on her face. "Oh, Please, she said. Your grandmother. How quaint. I smiled then, a small, sad smile that was a direct reflection of her own cruelty. She always told me that the most expensive things in life are not the ones you buy, but the ones you earn. Like respect. I let the words hang in the air, a quiet bomb in a room full of noise. She always said it was impossible to buy respect, and that it's a gift you can only give to yourself. A quiet hush fell over the small group. The friends who had laughed at me were now looking at her, their smiles gone. The implication was clear. Victoria had a lot of money, but she had no respect, for me or for anyone else. Victoria's face, which had been a mask of condescending amusement, now turned to a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. She tried to say something, but the words caught in her throat. The group of socialites, who had once been her sycophants, now looked at her with a new expression, a mixture of pity and contempt. They had been on the receiving end of her cruelty for years, and they were tired of it. My quiet retort was a direct hit, a moment of vulnerability that exposed her for what she was, a bully with a lot of money. A woman in the group, a beautiful older woman with a shock of silver hair and a kind face, walked over to me. Your grandmother sounds like a very wise woman, she said, a gentle smile on her face. My name is Eleanor. I'm a friend of Jonathan's. She handed me a napkin with a phone number written on it. Call me, she whispered, her eyes full of a quiet, compassionate fire. I think you're going to meet a friend. Victoria was fuming. Her face was flushed with rage, her perfect makeup a mask of pure, unadulterated hatred. She had tried to humiliate me, and I had, in a single, quiet moment, humiliated her back. The war had begun. The next morning, the golden cage turned into a prison. Victoria's cold fury was a tangible thing, a constant, oppressive presence in the house. She had me cleaning things that were already clean, reorganizing closets that had just been organized, and she was always, always watching me, waiting for me to fail. The children, sensing the tension, became quiet and withdrawn. They would sneak into my room, their small faces full of a quiet fear. I would reassure them, telling them everything was okay, but I knew it wasn't. The first blow came a week later. She left her favorite diamond earrings, a pair of priceless heirlooms, on her bedside table. The next day, they were gone. She called the police, her voice full of a righteous, feigned terror. They're gone, she shrieked. The nanny must have taken them. I was pulled into the library, a room with soaring ceilings and dark, oppressive furniture, and a police officer with a kind face stood there, a notebook in his hand. Victoria, tears streaming down her face, pointed a perfectly manicured finger at me. She stole them, she cried. She's been so insolent ever since I told her her dress was cheap. I knew she was a bad seed. I knew she couldn't be trusted. The officer, a man named Miller, was quiet and professional. He asked me a series of questions, and I answered them honestly, my hands shaking. I was innocent, but I knew that in this world, innocence was a luxury I couldn't afford. Victoria had a narrative, and she had a powerful, wealthy family to back it up. I had nothing. Do you know where the earrings are? Officer Miller asked, his voice gentle. I have no idea, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I'm innocent. I would never steal anything. He looked at me, a flicker of doubt in his eyes. He saw a young, scared girl, and he saw a powerful, well-connected woman. I knew who he was going to believe. Victoria was not done. She had a network of spies and informants. She planted things in my room, a small silver locket, a pair of cufflinks. She was building a case, a paper trail of false evidence that would prove, to her, and to the world, that I was a thief. She was a master manipulator, a woman who could make a lie look like a truth look like a lie. I was a 20-year-old girl with a black dress and a lot of courage, but I was no match for her. Not on my own. The night of the second police visit, a quiet knock came at my door. It was Eleanor, the woman from the gala. She was standing there, a small, kind smile on her face. I saw what she did, she said, her voice a low, steady whisper. I saw the way she looked at you. She's a cruel woman. She's a child. She has to be the most powerful person in the room, and when she can't, she lashes out. It's a sad, predictable pattern. She handed me a piece of paper, a business card with a name and a phone number. His name is Ben, she said. He's a lawyer. The best. He specializes in white-collar crime and family law. Tell him I sent you. He'll help you. I was stunned. I was a nanny, and this woman, a powerful socialite, was offering me a lifeline. Why? I asked, my voice shaking. Why are you helping me? Because it's the right thing to do, she said simply. And because I've seen her get away with this for too long. She needs to be taught a lesson. A real one. She needs to be taught that she can't buy respect, and she can't buy the truth. She left as quietly as she had come, a ghost of kindness in a house of cruelty. Ben was a man who looked like he had been a boxer in his youth, with a broken nose and kind eyes. He was a veteran, a man who had fought for justice in a different kind of war. He listened to my story with an unflinching, professional focus. When I was done, he didn't offer pity. He offered a plan. This is a classic case of harassment and defamation, he said, his voice a low, confident growl. Victoria Sullivan is trying to destroy you. We have to fight back, and we have to fight smart. We have to prove that she is lying, and we have to prove that she is the one who is the criminal. He was a warrior. He had me write down every detail, every conversation, every threat, every look of condescension. He had me get copies of every police report, every text message, every email. He told me to get a new phone and to start logging every interaction. He was building a case, a mountain of evidence that would prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that I was innocent. He was fighting for me, a young nanny from a small town, against a powerful, ruthless woman with an army of lawyers and a mountain of money. The most crucial piece of the puzzle, however, came from an unexpected source. A young man named Leo, the son of another socialite, had seen the incident at the gala. He had also seen Victoria's lies and harassment on social media, and he had reached out to Eleanor, telling her he wanted to help. Leo was a computer prodigy, a man who could hack his way into a system with a few strokes of his keyboard. He met me at a coffee shop, his face a mask of quiet determination. Victoria is trying to destroy you, he said, his voice a low whisper. She's planting evidence on your devices. She's sending you threatening emails from burner accounts. She's tracking your location. He showed me the proof. He had hacked into her system, and he had found the paper trail of her crimes. He showed me the logs, the emails, the location data. He showed me the proof that she had been in my room, that she had been planting the jewelry, that she had been the one harassing me. He had a mountain of evidence, a digital fingerprint of her malicious intent, and he was ready to give it to my lawyer. I was stunned. This was not a world of polite social gatherings. This was a world of spies, of hackers, of lies and secrets, a world of power struggles and revenge. With the new evidence in hand, Ben, my lawyer, made a move. He didn't go to the police. He didn't go to the media. He went to Jonathan, Victoria's quiet, powerful husband. He presented him with a folder, a thick, devastating folder of evidence. The bar footage, the police reports, the witness statements from Eleanor and other socialites, the cybersecurity logs from Leo, it was all there, a clear, unassailable portrait of his wife's malice and deceit. Jonathan, a man who had always been a quiet observer in his own life, was stunned. He was a man who had built an empire on trust and integrity, and he was a man who had been married to a liar and a thief. He saw the truth, not just about his wife, but about the woman he had become. He saw the cold cruelty, the viciousness, the way she had used his own children as pawns in a sick, calculated game of revenge. He filed for divorce. The legal and social fallout was immediate. The Sullivans' world, which had once been a pristine, perfect image of wealth and power, was now a public spectacle of scandal and deceit. The quiet, powerful husband, a man who had always been in the background, was now at the center of a very public, very ugly divorce. The socialite world, a world of whispers and secrets, turned on Victoria with a swift, brutal finality. The same people who had laughed at her cruel jokes now turned on her completely. Eleanor and a few others, a small, courageous group of people who were tired of her cruelty, began to talk. They told stories, true stories, of her viciousness, her lies, her manipulation. The gossip columns, which had once been filled with glowing reports of her charity work and her designer gowns, were now filled with stories of her public humiliation, her lies, her fake tears, and her police reports. She was a social pariah, a woman who had once been at the top of the social ladder, now a woman at the bottom. Her social capital, which had once been her most valuable asset, was now her greatest liability. The world she had built, a world of appearances and lies, was crumbling around her. The legal and financial fallout from her public actions and her husband's divorce was swift and brutal. Jonathan, a man who had once been a quiet, passive observer, was now a man of action. He used his legal team, his wealth, and his influence to dismantle her life, piece by piece. The financial accounts she had once controlled were now frozen. The assets she had once owned were now being scrutinized. Her inheritance, a large sum of money that she had always relied on, was now in danger of being lost. The police investigation, which had once been a tool for her revenge, was now a tool for her downfall. The evidence that Leo had provided, the emails, the location data, the proof that she had been the one planting the jewelry, was now a part of the official record. She was no longer a victim, she was a criminal. She was a woman who had tried to frame an innocent person, and she was now paying the price for her actions. She was a woman who had lost everything, not because of a single lie, but because of a single, devastating moment of truth. My life is unrecognizable now. I have a new job, a new apartment, and a new life. The Sullivans are a distant memory, a cautionary tale of a world I was once a part of. Victoria's life is in ruins. Her husband is happy, her children are safe, and the woman who had once tried to destroy my life is now a woman who is a pariah in her own community. My story is not just a story of a young nanny who was publicly humiliated. It's a story of a young woman who, with the help of a few good people, found the courage to fight back, to stand up for herself, and to fight for the truth. It's a story of a world that, beneath its shimmering surface, is full of secrets, of lies, and of power struggles. But it's also a story of hope, of resilience, and of the power of community, a community that can, against all odds, stand up for the truth. I am no longer a ghost in the golden cage. I am a person, a woman who has found her voice, a woman who has found her power. And in the end, that was the most valuable thing of all.